Good evening, one and all, to the final race of the week here in MRC. It is the no assist crazy gang for the MRC X-Treme, and it's a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous weather for the qualifying session here at what can only be described as the home of Formula One and the home of motorsports. It is Silverstone, the home of the British Grand Prix. I am your lead com tonight, VitW365, and alongside me in the comms box tonight is formerly known as Chatty Duck, now Nev. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Plenty of history at this track, with it being one of the I think it was the very first official Formula One round races back in 1950, Silverstone was. So, yeah, plenty of history to roll off at this very track. Been plenty of winners over the years. Let's just sort things out. We'll find somebody on an out lap who's the lead. Sauber first car out, so we'll find the Sauber, which is furthest up, going through Copse. We've got Rassam just going through Copse corner on his installation lap. We had a soaking wet tier 3 earlier. It was a dry qualifying but a soaking wet race. I wonder what weather conditions we're going to be having for tonight, and Martin's told us it's all dry for MRC X-Treme, so it's a bone dry race to finish off the week. And we'll go on board with the Kick Sauber of Rassam as he comes through Club onto the Lewis Hamilton straight to get this session underway as he enters into Abbey, and then we go through Farm Curve, and then as soon as you get there it's turn 3 of Village, and then we head into the Loop, which will then lead on to Aintree, and then it's going to be DRS Open as we head down the Wellington Straight down to Brooklands and Luffield. Nice and tidy through Brooklands, and then we straight into Luffield. Bit of a lock up, and then out of Luffield we head down to Woodcut, and then over the old start finish straight towards the infamous Copse corner. Nice and steady. Now we go into the Maggots and Beckett's complex of corners, which then will lead on to Chapel, and then DRS Open as we head down the Hanger Straight flat out down towards Stowe corner. Nice and tidy through Stowe. Then we head down Village into Club for the end of the lap, and let's see what time Rassam will put on the board to get this session underway, and he does a 1:27.927 to get this qualifying session underway. Nice tidy lap there, as Red Car does a 1:27.6. Welcome back, the Hobbits. And Soze puts a 27.992, who got pole in tier 2 in a wet to dry qualifying. Nice to share the front row with him on Monday. Shame my race didn't go to plan, but we move on. As Smith puts a bank of a 29.4, and then Doris comes in and puts it on provisional front row with a 27.717 in the Racing Bull. Single track going through Abbey. as Armar 26.9, phenomenal lap, puts the Alpine on provisional pole. Chris slots in second, 27.4 in the Ferrari. We're going to keep an eye on single track as he heads through Luffield and then Woodcut.
Looks like he's got a Williams just in front of him, which is Panizza, but he is on a lap as well, so he's not going to get in the way, hopefully.
Yeah, he's in. I think Panizza's got 2 Red Bulls up the road from him as well. Yeah, because you got both Red Bulls going through Vale as single track goes through Stowe, but invalidates on the exit of Stowe.
Saviour's on a quick lap. Oh,
yeah, 1:26.5. He had phenomenal pace on Monday in Tier 2. Tier 1, sorry. Bobo with a 28.8, but I'm sure he's got plenty more in the tank because Bobo was up towards the front. He's also done that lap on medium, so I expect him to put an even better lap time on the board as Lorpy at 27.3 in the Aston Martin, third, ahead of Chris, which is not often you tend to see. But we'll join Ant as he's heading into club in his Mercedes.
He's on intermediates though, so this is going to be
29.8. That's quicker than all of our laps in Tier 2, because I think pole that Soze did was a 37.2, I think 37.2 for Soze's pole in Tier 2. Mind you, the track would have been, it was dry, but the track was cold, so it was difficult to get the heat in those soft tyres, which is why I opted to go for the used Inters on that final run and put it on that front row alongside him, which has been a long time since I've been up the front of the grid at Silverstone. Yeah, plenty of decent laps to start off. Saviour 26.5, Armar 26.9, the only 2 in the 26s.
Armar's actually on a quicker lap now.
Yeah, we're just he's just coming through Stowe in Vale into club now. So let's see how much he improves. 26.8, 45,000th improvement for Armar. The gap between him and Chris going into this round of the championship, round 9, is only 8 points. We have 5 Tier 2 drivers racing tonight, and I believe 7 Tier 1 drivers, so both Tier 1 and Tier 2 will be getting the maximum of 25 points up for grabs, whereas Tier 3 we only have 4, so the maximum they will be getting will be 16 points. So the problem, I was talking to Chris during Tier 3, the problem he's got is anyone in that Tier 1 class can win in Tier 1, whereas most of the season through X-Treme, the driver that's been on form in the Tier 2 class has been Armar. So the problem that Chris has is he's racing people that can win, so he's going to be dropping points. He's done well to take the fight to Armar, but Armar's been quite consistent with the wins and 25 points when they've had the drivers in. We're going to be going for a lap with Doris, who's currently 6th on a 27.717 as he sends the racing ball through Farm Curve and enters into Village and the Loop. down the Wellington Straight, so we'll see what the first delta time is going to be. Is 7 thousandths down on his quickest, so he's only a fraction down, so he could improve as he enters through Luffield into Woodcote, over the old start finish straight, heading down towards Copse Corner, easily within track limits. Let's see if Maggots and Beckett's is nice and tidy. It does look it. Car looking planted through there as well as he goes through Chapel, down the Hanger Straight towards Stowe. Got a McLaren just ahead. The McLaren's going to peel out the way, allow Doris to finish his lap as he enters Club. Now, has he been able to improve on his 27.7? He does. He improves by 0.3 to a 27.413, putting him P5. Puts him ahead of Rassam on the grid. But we'll jump to currently second place. Chris has improved onto a 26.7 in that Ferrari. He needs to be at the front of the pack for Tier 1 if he's going to try and hold on to that championship lead. It's only 8 points between him and Armar.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for him when you've got the likes of Saviour, obviously one of the quickest guys in the whole of MRC, challenging you for the wins, and the likes of Bobo and Ant as well. Bobo's just starting a flying lap.
So we'll find Bobo. He'll be on a set of softs now. Yes, he is. He's entering Village in the Williams. Bit of a lock-up as he enters into the loop, but it still looks nice and tidy. Now he's going to be DRS open, foot to the floor, down the Wellington Straight, down towards Brooklands, and then Luffield. He won't be worried too much about the Delta because he set his banker on mediums, so he should be a decent improvement coming up by Bobo as he goes through Copse Corner. As we have Jules and Ant now ahead of Chris as well, so Jules 26.701, Ant with a 26.705. I'm expecting Bobo to be around that as well as he's going down the Hanger Straight down towards Stowe Corner. Looks very planted through Stowe, down into Club to finish the lap. Let's see where he puts his Williams on this second run. 26.588 puts him on that front row alongside Saviour. This is hurting Chris because he's now got, he's down in 5th on the grid. He's got Armar behind him, but everyone in front of him are Tier 1 drivers, so he's got plenty of work to do in the race, whereas Armar's the lead Tier 2 driver on the grid at the moment in 6th.
Yeah, and it perfectly illustrates what you were saying before. There are 6 drivers out there at the moment who have broken under 1 minute 27. One of them is Armar Red, and yeah, the rest of them are all Tier 1 drivers. So Armar is clearly the class of Tier 2 in this lobby, and that's going to make it very difficult for Chris. He's got to find 2 or 3 tenths really on his final lap.
Big improvement coming up for Soze. He's 6 tenths up as he went through Chapel, the pole sitter from Tier 2 on Monday in the wet to dry conditions. Where's he going to improve? He's on a 27.992 as he goes through Club and the final corner, and he improves to a 27.155. 8 tenths improvement puts him in 7th and ahead of the fellow Aston Martin of Lorpe, who's currently on an outlap himself.
Yeah, and Kaiser Soze is the kind of driver that Chris needs to help with his championship aspirations, but yeah, 3/10 off of Armand's time.
Yeah, and it's nice to see Soze with a bit more confidence now, because I'm sure his pole position in Tier 2 at the start of the week would have gave him the confidence he needed to find to get him back into the groove again, because I believe he lost a bit of confidence when he was in Tier 1 with being at the foot end of the pack most of it, but it's nice to see Soze getting to where he's more happier, and we're seeing a more competitive Kaiser Soze now as we're following the second Aston Martin of Lorpy through as he heads through Luffield. His opening lap was a 27.309. Oh, but the back end came out at Copse in his round at Copse, so that's that lap gone. I hope the tyres haven't had too much wear put on them with that spin, but the back end didn't seem to want to grip, and round went the Aston Martin at Copse corner. As we jump to Chris, who's a 10th up as he headed through Copse corner, where Lorpy recently just dropped the Aston Martin. Chris will want to try and get as close to the front of Tier 1 that he possibly can. He's 2/10 up as he heads down the hangers straight and into Stowe corner. Down Vale into Club. Let's see how up the grid he can get with this attempt. 26.440 puts the Ferrari on provisional pole. That is exactly what Chris needed to do. But as he enters onto the hanger straight is Saviour, and he is also improving.
And improving by a lot as well. That looked like 3 or 4 tenths after Sector 2, so this is going to be a big statement from Saviour.
He's not going to make things easy for Chris at the top of the championship, as Saviour improves to a 26.223. Is that Saviour or Max Verstappen? That's my question, because Saviour has found another level this season. He's been fighting Ben and Ugorni at the top of Tier 1 all season long. He's just found another gear this season. It's phenomenal what he's putting in this season.
Well, it's interesting that you mention Verstappen, because Verstappen likes a very pointy front end, and actually that's one of the handling features of this year's game, is that you can really throw the car into corners, and that seems to suit Saviour as well.
Yeah, his checker flag is out. A few drivers have caught the flag, and that's their qualifying session over. Currently watching Bobo at Luffield, a 26.588 on that second row. Rassam has called qualifying a day in the pit lane. As Bobo goes through Copse, he's got a racing ball just behind him. Chris is in the pits. He's going to have his fingers crossed that he will be on that front row after all the times have come in. Bobo only 96 thousandths up in the second sector, which I believe isn't enough to leapfrog Chris off of that front row, and Bobo has bailed on his lap. Jules stays P4, Ant goes P3 just behind Chris. So Chris will hold on to, as Doris improves to P8, so Chris does hold on to that front row alongside Saviour. So Saviour is on pole for the MRC X-Treme British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Chris will be alongside him on the front row. Those two have been very close to each other all season long, whether it's been X-Treme or Tier 1. Ant will be third, we'll have Bobo in fourth, Jules fifth, Armar sixth. So Armar gets pole position for the tier 2 class, so he's right where he needs to be to keep that challenge going with Chris for the X-Treme title. So we'll run through the full grid now for, well, I would do if it didn't come up saying communication with online servers. It's now gone, so I can quickly run through. Saviour takes pole, Chris second and third, Bobo fourth, Jules fifth, Armor sixth, Keyser Soze seventh, Doris eighth, Lorpy ninth, Rassam rounds out the top 10, Red Car in 11th, Single Track 12th, Smith 13th, Peninza 14th, Dan in 15th, and rounding off the grid is Mika in 16th. So now we have the 5-minute interval between qualifying and race, and it is dry, as Martin said in the YouTube chat. So I'm a little bit disappointed, because to me the British Grand Prix isn't a British Grand Prix without a bit of rain, but sadly Tier 3 took all that with a complete wet race earlier on.
There is some cloud cover though, so it's
yeah, it does look a bit overcast.
Temps might be a bit lower at least.
Yeah. Anyway, Silverstone, located in Buckinghamshire and Northamptonshire. The circuit is 3.66 miles long. We'll be running 26 laps at 50%. The first race at this track was held back in the 13th of May 1950. There is 18 corners. We have 10 to the right and 8 to the left. Most successful driver at this circuit is the 7-time world champion Sir Lewis Hamilton. He's won here 9 times in 2008, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 19, 2020, 21, and of course the magnificent win last year in 2024. The race lap record is held by Dutchman Max Verstappen with a 1:27.097, which was set during the pandemic in 2020. And I'm not going to give much more information out because of in case of certain things, and I don't want to give out too much facts and have nothing to talk about during safety cars and whatnot. Yes, I've just said the word and we all hate saying it.
Yeah,
but,
I think this track's actually not the most because it's quite wide. You know, there's quite a lot of runoff. It's not the most likely to have safety cars.
Yeah, you kind of forget how wide this track is, because I forgot how wide it was until we did the first practice session on Thursday, and I believe because I usually in a party with Chris during those practice sessions, even he was a bit surprised by how wide the track is, because he forgot how wide it was. Another thing with Silverstone, one of the most disliked pit lanes, because it's the slowest on the calendar and one of the longest as well, so you tend to lose quite a bit of time as Peninza's got back in the lobby after being dropped. I don't think he'll be able to take his car until after the formation lap, which is the only problem, but he'll have his setup and everything on. But I don't know if he would have got his strategy sorted. But he's going to have to wait till after the formation lap to retake his car. What are your first memories of the British Grand Prix? What was the first race you ever watched round here, Nev?
Ooh. It's a good question. I'm actually not sure. It'll be somewhere around the 2000, early 2000s mark. It might even be the race where you had the crazy man running down the Hanger Straight.
Oh,
Um,
the streaker. I remember that. The first British Grand Prix I ever seen on the telly, I think was either 90 or 99, because I still have vivid memories, especially of 99, being a Schumacher fan. Obviously, the race got underway, but then it was red flagged. But I don't think the news got to those at the front because they were still racing, and obviously Schumacher, all four wheels locked up, the car just went skating off at Stowe Corner into a tyre barrier, and he famously broke his ankle from that crash and was out until, I believe, Malaysia.
yep, and then played number 2 to Eddie
Yeah,
Irvine to try and win
and
him
I
the championship.
believe I believe Eddie Irvine said himself that he's the best number one driver, but he's also the best number two driver,
Yeah,
because he really put Irvine in contention to take the fight to Hakkinen, but Hakkinen went back to back in '99, clinching the title in Suzuka. Schumacher did everything to try and help Irvine, but it wasn't enough. So Mika went back to back in '98 and '99. Obviously, during the pandemic, we had the two races around Silverstone. We had the British Grand Prix, but then we also had the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, because I think by the rules, a country can't host two races, because in the past we've had, just using this for example, we had Silverstone in '93, but we also had Donington, but Donington was classified as the European Grand Prix, and Xavier is now taking everybody round on formation. So we'll have a quick look at what tyres everyone's decided to start on, and it's almost a 50-50 split. We've got the Xavier, Jules, Doris, Lorpe, Rassam, Single Track, Peninza and Mika on the softs. But going for the alternate strategy, we've got Chris and Bobo, Armar, Soze, Redcar, Schmidt and Dan. So it's almost a 50-50 split between the soft and mediums. Some of them going for the more aggressive start and the undercut, and then some of them going for the longer game and wanting the quicker tyre for the final stint.
yeah, and this is a track where you, I think, really want to avoid the hard tyres if you can, because the performance is not great.
Yeah, I think the only time you'll probably go onto a hard tyre is if you get forced onto it, like if you're on the softs and it's like an early safety car. I know you probably won't want to, and you'll probably try and stick it out for the mediums. But if you got damage in the opening 3 laps, as Chris getting a bit close to the rear of Xavier through club. Chris wanting to get to his grid box and get this race underway as soon as possible. Here's another interesting question for you, Nev. Would you rather be on the outside going towards Abbey, or would you rather be on the inside on the opening lap of this race? Do you want to be on the...
I'd want to be on the inside, because you've got the inside for turn 3 then as well.
Yes, that is true.
It's obviously the first braking zone.
Yeah, because as long as you stick side by side through Farm Curve, you got the inside for Village. As we have 4 or 5 red lights, and we're underway here at Silverstone for MRC X-Treme. Good launch for both Xavier and Chris, but Bobo also having a good launch. He's up to 3rd ahead of Jules. Ant's dropped 2 places. A few more position changes further back, but we're going to focus on the front section of the pack. Xavier leads away through the loop. and Aintree, but Chris keeping tabs. Obviously Chris will have a disadvantage in these opening laps with Saviour being on the soft tyre, but Chris in the Ferrari will want to try and stay as close to Saviour in these opening laps as everybody's got through so far with no issues. As Chris has had a look on the inside of Cops and there's actual contact with Saviour, but Saviour held it, and now Bobo leads, Jules is through as well. Chris is down to third place. Chris going for the move on the inside of Cops, and a minor contact with Saviour put Saviour sideways, and I believe Chris has let Saviour back through. Chris and Saviour weaving, Chris weaving as apology. I don't think he would have wanted to make contact, but Jules now leads ahead of Bobo. So we have a McLaren leading by Williams, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, your top five after this opening lap. As Jules is going to try and pull away now the best he can. But an interesting opening lap as Smith has left the session. Hopefully he can get back in and not lose too much time. As Saviour is already on the back of Bobo. Bobo on the medium tyres, Saviour on the softs.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why Chris did that really, because he could have just stayed behind Saviour and used the DRS on lap 2. Bit reckless really to be making a move like that on the first lap, and it's really scuppered him now because he's got 3 drivers in front of him, and it's going to be very difficult from here to get past all of them.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is he had the overspeed from Saviour, the slipstream, got to the inside, and it was just the slightest of touches, but Saviour going to the inside of Stowe Corner and has made the move on Bobo into Vale. So Saviour back up to second. Next target will be Jules in the McLaren. Just a look further back, we have Lorpy ahead of Armar, so Lorpy doing favours for Chris in the championship, being ahead of Armar at this stage. But Armar looking to be coming under a little bit of pressure from Soze in the second Aston Martin. So
this is what Chris is going to need.
Yeah, he's going to need the tier 2 contingent to take the fight to Armar, and it's looking that way. He's looking relatively comfortable, happy to be behind Lorpy. Lorpy on the soft tyre, so that probably explains why Lorpy got ahead of Armar. Soze behind on the mediums. We'll jump back to the front. Saviour only 2/10 off of Jules as we head down to Maggots and Beckett's. You can see from the helicopter shot how close Saviour was getting. He'll have DRS onto the hangar straight. He'll get hooked up behind the McLaren. Jules is making him go the long way round to the outside, but Saviour with DRS is through into Stowe Corner to take back the lead of this race. Taking full advantage of the grippier soft tyre in these opening laps. And sets the fastest lap in the process of a 29.172. Championship leader Chris still sat in 4th place behind Bobo and Jules, as we have a yellow flag for Mika at club. Hopefully he's got that Mercedes going, which he has done. I can see on the little track mini map in the bottom corner. So Mika's got himself going again. Oh, he's round again now. I believe this is his first try at no assist, so fair play to him to giving it a go tonight. He's guaranteed points if he finishes, so as long as he keeps plucking away, he'll be alright. But we're focusing still on this top 4 as Ant has dropped out of a second from Chris, who's really looking to take the fight to Bobo. The only problem is Bobo will be getting DRS off of Jules. But we'll jump to the McLaren. Saviour making him go the long way round, but sweeps round the outside into Stowe corner. Does Jules to retake the lead in the McLaren. The front 2 on soft tyres. Bobo and Chris on the medium, so they're playing a slightly longer game than Jules and Saviour. So at this stage, Jules and Saviour will be on the preferable tyre, but it will eventually come to Bobo and Chris as the stint goes on, as we have a yellow flag for Mika again, this time at Brooklands. Saviour with DRS down the Wellington Straight, but unable to make a headway at Jules into Brooklands. But Ant has caught back up to this pack. But Lorpy keeping within DRS of Ant, which is saving him from an attack from Armar, as Mika gets 10 seconds for exceeding track limits, letting cars through earlier on. As we see a move
falling away again.
Yeah, we had a move for the lead, and we also had a move for P3 as well. Chris trying to go around the outside of Bobo at Stowe. Unable to make the move stick, unlike Saviour's move for the lead. So Saviour and Jules leapfrog again. The question is when will...
Just barely hanging on to that within a second, just barely, and he keeps dropping out and then coming back in again.
Yeah, and it looks like Armar is now starting to put a bit of an attack onto Lorpy, as Lorpy will be outside. He'll have no DRS. Armar will have DRS on Lorpy and will close in towards the Aston Martin, towards Brooklands. He'll want to keep as close as possible as we head through Woodcote and then down towards Copse Corner. But Soze, from this helicopter view through Copse, is slightly closer to Armar than Armar is to Lorpy. And bit of a
contact.
Closing speed there between Armar and Soze. Soze had a great run, got a bit of a tow, and a minor nick between the Alpine and Aston Martin. No damage on the Aston Martin, which is good for Soze, as Doris in the Racing Bull is all over the back of Lorpy, as Mika's called it a night in the pits. Fair play for giving it a go tonight, so keep your head up. We'll jump back to the front where we have Jules and Saviour leading the way, with Bobo and Chris just behind. Bobo not having the best of exits through the loop. Chris is right on the Williams. He's squeezing him to go around the outside, but then it will come the inside for Luffield, and that is P3 for Chris. Lovely worked move. He was on the outside for Brooklands, which then become the inside for Luffield, and he gets P3 through Woodcote, as we have a yellow flag. I believe that is red car having a moment at Luffield. But now Chris will want to take the attack to Saviour as we head on to the Hanger Straight. is he's right tucked up behind the Red Bull, but the only problem is Saviour has DRS to Jules heading down towards Stowe. But it does look like the medium tyres are starting to come into play now compared to the soft tyres. It is slowly coming to the likes of Chris, Bobo and Ant in that front 5, as Armour now back into 6th place where he started, which puts him first in Tier 2, which he needs to be, especially with Chris being 3rd in Tier 1. So it swings and roundabouts in the championship. Armour currently on 25 points. Chris is currently on 16, and it's an 8-point deficit at this stage of the championship, as we have a yellow flag again, but it's soon cleared quickly. But we'll jump back to the front again as we head towards Maggots and Beckett's. We have a few different fights going off. We have the top 5 of Tier 1 guys, and then we've got a train behind of Tier 2 drivers and Rassam at the back of it in the Sauber, as Saviour takes the lead, but Chris is also looking to follow him through for 2nd place and does so, but Jules will have the inside for Club, but Chris gets it round the outside and beautifully works. So Jules gone from 1st to 3rd in a couple of corners, but Saviour able to open up a 6/10 gap, 7/10 gap as he heads towards Village. Hopefully Chris can reel that back in.
Chris is looking very punchy tonight. He's pulled off a couple of really nice overtakes on Bobo and Jules there to get himself back into contention with Saviour again.
Yeah, he knows what's at stake, because he knows Armour tends to be at the front of the Tier 2 class, so he needs to do everything he can to keep this championship fight going. He has said to me many times so far this season that he's in a shot of a title and he's not letting this one slip, so he is giving it 110%. And as you say, he's looking very punchy, because him and Saviour have pulled 1 second to Jules. So Chris looking very racy as Bobo makes the move past Jules in the back of shot, but Chris unable to make anything into Stowe with Saviour. But Bobo able to get back in of DRS of Chris, so that's brought Jules back into play as well. Jules,
and just quietly at the back of all of this in P5.
Yeah.
Just playing the long game.
Which tends to be one of Ant's common traits. He's not afraid to just sit there and play the boring one. I mean, I can say I do it as well. I'm happy to just sit behind the car in front and let them make a mistake rather than go for the overtake. But we all have our own ways of approaching and have our own different forms of racecraft. Some of us are more patient than others. But Chris can't afford to be patient because of what's on the line, with Armour actually pulling a bit of a gap to, which is Soze now. Soze is now ahead of Lorpy as well. So Lorpy on those softs, starting to feel the effects. And it's now dropped down to 3rd in Tier 2, but 8th overall. And he's now coming under a little bit of pressure from single track in the McLaren, as Ant now has made the move past Jules, is down to 5, but Chris has also taken the lead as Saviour dives into the bits, and so does Jules.
Yeah, so the two soft tyre runners in the top 5 making that bid for the pits, and that will give them an advantage temporarily while they've got the fresher rubber. So they've got to make these laps count now.
Yeah, luckily they're not going to be caught up in too much traffic neither. Like, Saviour will come out with plenty of clear air to Rassam, who's on the back of that train of... I've just noticed single tracks now ahead of Lorpy, so yeah, the soft tyres on Lorpy's car are really struggling. And Saviour has come out behind the Kick-Sauber of Dan. Jules not too far behind, so Jules still keeping Saviour close. As we have Dan and Peninza having a scrap as Dan makes a move into Brooklands. Lock up and got it stopped, but nice move by Dan to get up to P10 ahead of Peninza. But these two scrapping isn't going to help Saviour, but he's making an early move. He's on the inside heading towards Copse Corner. Down the inside of Peninza at Copse goes Saviour. So Saviour making hay while the sun shines, while he's on the fresher rubber. We'll jump back to the front three. Chris, Bobo and Ant on those medium tyres, able to go a lot longer than the softs, as we now have single track Rassam and Doris in, who were the other soft tyre runners.
And it's just Lorpy and Panizza still on their original set of soft tyres. I don't know if Panizza has carried on. Looks like he has.
Yeah, Panizza's
so they're going to try
carried
and
on.
do 12 laps.
They're stretching those soft tyres out, but the Lorpy is feeling the effects of them, because he finds himself nearly 3 seconds off of Soze and Armar. But
yeah, and he's not got the benefit of a tow or DRS at the moment either, which is a real disadvantage around here.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that Soze getting pole in Tier 2 would have been a good confidence boost, and it's showing that as well, because he's really keeping Armar close for company, as Bobo has made a move to the lead with DRS past Chris, and Soze also makes the move past Armar. So Soze now in front of Tier 2. But it's still early stages yet. It's only lap 13 of 26. As Lorpy 2 has now pitted to get off the soft tyre. He's took those 12 laps. And Peninza, I believe you're saying, Nev, was the other runner on the soft tyre. But Peninza decides to carry on. He's going for a 13th lap on those soft tyres. As Soze being able to hold Armar back. Armar did have DRS but unable to make headway. Jump back to the front because Chris was within a 10th as they go through Luffield.